Welcome to another day in Ultimate DIYer. Today we're in Texas where it's nice and hot. That's why I'm wearing an ice vest. You can check out my video on the ice vest, how well it works. But we're going to be replacing this roof. It's a galvanized metal roof that the customer had put on. He bought the metal from Home Depot. It's a very low profile type of R panel, and he didn't put sealer tape in it, and the water is running underneath the seams and penetrating and getting inside the building. So we're going to put, instead of a 2-panel system like he did here where the panels stop and then continue, and he did do a good overlap, but we're not going to do that. We're going to do solid 24 feet sheets. This is a 24 by 24 building. We're going to pull all this off today, put some new tar paper and stuff down, get it weather tight, and then tomorrow we'll be coming back and putting in the trim all the way around. Once the trim is in, we'll start lifting the new panels up and putting them in. Shouldn't be too difficult, but stay tuned and we'll show you how it's done. Okay. So the first thing we did is we went ahead and pulled these trim pieces off real quick, but I want to show you how these screws work. You'll use a good driver and an impact. These particular screws, it's going into plywood, not metal. A normal building, metal building, you'll have a different screw with a self-tapper. Honestly, it looks like the customer may have used the wrong screw here to begin with. We're going to use the metal to wood screws. But these also have a little rubber grommet. You can kind of see it here, it's crushed. You have to make sure those rubber grommets are on, so when you put them on and it pulls tight, it makes a weather-tight seal. That's what keeps these screws from leaking. And you'll notice, we'll show you when we get to the part where we put the panel on, we're going to have some, it's kind of almost like a plumber's putty that you'll roll out and you put in between these panels to help stop anything from leaking. So we're going to go ahead and throw it on time lapse so we don't bore you guys to death, and we'll show you, let you just kind of see how we pull everything off. We'll slow it down in a minute when we start putting on the felt paper and all. You can use felt or you can use the plastic. We're going to use felt today. That's what the customer prefers, and that's what he already had up here. So we are going to put another layer of felt on top of it. Depending on how bad this felt is, we may just go over the top of the felt with a new layer, giving double layers. So we'll see when we get there, but we'll slow it down and we'll give you a little bit more description at that point. So time lapse, we'll go ahead and start now.
So the trim that the customer has on, if you look, it's real floppy. He put screws at the bottom, but nothing at the top. So this, as water runs over, will catch and run inside the building. I'm gonna have about a 6-inch overhang on the metal to get past this, but I'm gonna use some of his old screws to screw this metal back in, because I'm replacing the trim on the other 3 sides, but not the back. But yeah, you can see how floppy.
Okay, so we've already put a few of the pieces of the tar paper down, but I want to give you a slight overcap of how this actually works. And by the way, it's like 100+ degrees right now, so we're burning up. Tempers are a little flared, but I'm going to try to get through this as quickly as I can. What you're basically going to do, you don't start at the top, you always start at the bottom, because you want the tar paper to overlap the one previous. So if water penetrates, it's going to flow away. Make sure when you put your tar paper down, they have straight lines. I use these lines generally as a guide to help line up my sheets and make sure I don't have wrinkles. The big thing you really don't want is a bunch of wrinkles, especially if you're using shingles. This is going to be a metal roof. My biggest concern is holding it down overnight, because we're not putting the metal on until tomorrow. I don't want a windstorm coming and ripping it up. So you can use a staple system. They'll have a hand staple you pound down, which is great, but we are going to use the nail and cap system. Holds it down really well. Wind comes, it's not going to go anywhere. Plus, I'm not going to stand on a piece of the asphalt and take off the roof. So some of the things, other things to make sure of, is that you do have an overhang on each side. You can go back and trim that later, especially if you're going to put drip edge, things like that on. Normally, I will put my tar paper down and then drip edge. Some people like to put the drip edge on first and put the tar paper over the top so the water will shed away. Like I said, in this particular instance, it doesn't matter, because this will have a big trim piece going around the metal. Totally different setup. How these work, you hold it in your fingers like so, and you're going to space out about every 2 to 3 feet. I usually go about this distance. I'll put another one here. So I would take it, you hold it, start it, just like that, push it in. If you bend this nail and it's crooked, get rid of it, put another one in. It creates a leak spot if water ever penetrates your roof. You'll put one here, here, here. Same thing, all the way down. And you'll continue. When we come back to do the next row, this is the overlap. The next row will come down and you'll overlap about 6 inches, roll it out. That way, if the water penetrates from the top and is working its way down, it cannot get under here. So do not go the opposite direction. Do not start at the top, work your way down. It's always bottom up. So I'm gonna put you back on time lapse so you're not bored to death. Let's get to Okay, so we're back now. This is day 2, and we're going to, and it is extremely humid, by the way. If you notice, my shirt is soaked already. I haven't been out here 20 minutes. Extreme high humidity for this part of Texas. But what we're going to do is we're going to take our panels, they're all stacked together, and we're going to pre-drill our holes. If you don't pre-drill your holes, it's going to look like somebody took a shotgun and just shot all your screws all over the roof. It's going to look awful. So you want to pre-drill so they're in the exact spot. You'll use a tape measure. I generally will do the centers, and you'll have to look at your manufacturer, your panels, but our panels are supposed to be the center. Some people will try to put them just up in the ribs, but that does not really protect you very well. It does not hold down, and it's not what the manufacturer recommends. So in common sense would probably tell you, yes, if I put them up on top, the water's going to run down below and it doesn't have a chance of leaking. That's why you have the little washers on your screws, and they're put in until just that screw is tight enough where you see the compression of that little washer. So I'm going to pre-drill my holes. I will probably have one here, here, and here, and then I'm going to put some on my laps. So when it goes up, when they overlap each other, there's already a screw there. But that way it gives me the exact spots and everything looks nice to the customer. So what I'm going to do is we're going to start marking everything, and we're going to put you on time lapse. And by the way, one other thing you want, I do have my cordless drills, but I like these DeWalt power drills just because it has a little bit higher RPM when you're drilling into metal. And one other thing to keep in mind, we're going into a wood top, so my holes don't have to be in an exact location. If you are putting these panels on top of steel framing girders, you're going to want to know where those girders are going to be, so you're going to have to take some pre-measurements so that you get your holes in the exact spot. It's not quite as critical on this particular project. But let's go ahead and put you on time lapse, and we're going to start drilling the holes and getting ready so we can go over and get these up on the roof. Okay, we got the panels up on the roof, which that was a joy. You got to see that in time lapse. And let me show you a couple of things on the steel panels as they go down. These steel panels, here's my pre-drilled holes, so they're all in the exact spot. The next one is going to overlap this, and I'll show you what we put in between in a second. But let me show you that these are called closures. You have two different types. This is going to slide up over just like so, and then we slide it out. You have to be gentle not to break that loose, but that seals this hole so animals, mice and other critters, bees, can't get inside. So that's for this end, and then the front closure is going to look like this, and it's going to set on top. And it sets on top because your trim piece, which I did put a little hem on that to make the water drip away a little, it's going to set across like so over the top, and then that keeps water from ever being able to go back in a driving rain and go up underneath, or bugs or anything else as well. And that covers all the way to the end, so it looks good. And I will have one that goes over the sides. So that is your trim and the closures. Okay, so the other thing that you do is in between each panel, you are going to run this out. It's like a plumber's putty. It actually pulls away from that, and it's very elastic. The trick to this is not to pull it, it's to lay it out flat. And you will just simply, every time you'll get your screws on, you will take this stuff and you'll start at the top, like so, and you just put it down. Actually get it in a row, and you just roll it down. Now what you can do is put it down, come back and pull the paper off at the very end, and then you'll take your next panel and just set it down right on it. So one of the things to keep in mind is this first panel needs to be really square and straight. It's very important, because if it's not, you're going to have a problem on all the next ones, and by the time you get to the end, you're not going to be laying square. Now this building is not particularly square. It's close, but it's out of square a little. So we'll have to see how that's going to do at the very end. But I would run this all the way to the bottom. So when I lay that piece on, though, it's going to make a watertight seal. And I'll show you in a second when we actually put the screws in. Okay, so when you drive these screws in, there is a little rubber washer on it. You can see it here in the close-up. Okay, that little rubber washer, you want to compress it, but you don't want to over-compress it. So what you're going to do is I'm going to slowly, I use my impact DeWalt. Get it in just enough. Now if you look in a closer, you can see where I just compressed the washer. You don't want it over compressed, but you want it just enough. So one more time, we'll start here. Just like that. That's all you need. And I will put one on the overlaps, and the longer ones are going into my wood. And if you notice, this is why I said it looked like those other screws that he had earlier were wrong. It has a very small drill head on the top. It seemed like the other one had a larger one, which is usually metal to metal. And then, but this will be going in the centers, the longer. And then on my laps, I'm going to be putting these little short ones in. And they basically have the same head, but they're much smaller. There's no sense in having a long one because you're not going into the wood. You're just going to lap those together. All right, so we're going to put you on time lapse now so that you don't have to get bored to death with us doing this. day 3 of the metal roof project. Today is basically trim, and we have one piece of metal that we're going to put on, and I'm going to show you kind of what we're going to do. The metal, we figured out, normally I take a metal saw and I'll trim it down to the right size, but these are your ribs. We want a rib at the very edge for 2 reasons. It'll allow something for the trim to screw onto correctly, so it's level, and it keeps water from washing back up and over into the edge of the building. So what we're going to do though, instead of trimming a piece, I can take and cut it right along here on the other piece all the way down, but it's a 24-foot cut. There's really no reason to have to do that. We're going to take a full piece and lay it down on here, but we're going to take the screws out that we put on, set the screws to the side, set it down, and we're going to attach that. So that will save us a little bit of time, and it gives a little more reinforcement on the edge of the building. The other thing that we're going to do, we took the overhang of the building because it's sloping this direction, and we put 6 inches on the end, and we made sure that was very nice and straight. So we don't have to cut that in. But the very nose of the building, we are actually over in some parts because the building is not totally square. So on this side of the building, we're over by about 3 inches. That side, we are dead on. So we're going to pop a chalk line, and we're going to cut this square. Then we'll go back and put on the actual trim. So what I'm going to do is we're going to put you on time lapse for a few minutes. We're going to get a couple of these parts done, and then I'll give you a little more description of the trim as soon as we get to the trim, which is pretty quick. So hang on and just watch a little time lapse.
Who am I to say what you should want and what you should need? Who am I to say for what your heart should bleed? No, no, I can only tell you about me, so listen now. The night falls down, a new day breaks. The world goes round in its tracks again. Wait for a bigger
Mic has actually gone out because of the heat and all the humidity actually in our mic port. So I'm going to try to talk loud so that you can understand what we're doing. So we're going to go ahead and try to pop our chalk line. We already got the other piece of metal down and sealed. It worked perfect. So we're going to do that. I'm going to let you kind of watch as we stretch the line out, pop the chalk line, and then I'll probably start cutting real quick. And I'll let you kind of see that in real time if you like. I may speed it up a little. Maybe, I'll tell you what, when it gets to the actual saw part, I'll go ahead and speed that up. All right, Dax, come over here. I'll tell you what, I'm going to give Dax the dummy end. So this is the trim. We got rake trim and we got the U trim that's going to go on the front, which is flat. We'll show you how that goes when it gets up there. Has a special closure that's going to go into this one. This one is pre-bent here, so it'll lay across the top and lay down on your panel. I'll show you that when we're on top as well. What I've already drilled the holes on this side. What we're doing is coming about 1.5 inches, 2 inches off the bottom, and we're doing a drill hole about every foot. So I'll show you basically how we're drilling these. They're pre-marked. We've got wood underneath it so we don't drill into the customer's deck. And drill. Now, this one's holding together pretty good. You can clamp this with a little cloth and clamp if you start having trouble. But this saves a lot of time and it makes sure that everything is in the same spot.
it on time. Okay, so our mics are still down, but I'm going to kind of give you an idea of what we've been doing. We have about 3 pieces of the trim left. We've taken pre-drilled like you saw us do here, and then underneath this ledge we put more of the sealer tape so that it'll seal. And you start at the bottom and work your way up so that the next piece will overlap this one. I would overlap at least 3 inches, maybe 6 if you have enough metal. And then on the sides, you can see we have screwed them in. I've got a couple of screws left to put in here. It started raining on us, but about every foot to hold those in. And we did a hemmed edge so the water runs down and away from the building. We're also leaving the metal that he put on underneath it so it gives it a double connection. So I've got the next piece of trim I'm going to put up right here. I'm going to put the camera on time lapse so that you can see kind of how that goes, and then we will be working on the very front. Okay, so this is how we actually put the sealing tape under it. We stick it to the bottom and go all the way down like Dax is doing right now. And when we get to the bottom, then we'll actually pull the paper off. You have to pull the paper gently or it'll pull the sealer tape right off the bottom again. It's really warm, so it's very pliable, it stretches. So as soon as he gets that done, we're going to pull that tape, pull the paper, and then we're going to put a screw down to hold this everywhere there's a screw next to it. So that will actually help quite a bit. And then we're able to do the fronts. This is the front piece, the nose. And how I cut this is simply cut a square out of the top, like you see here, and you have to notch this bottom where the hemmed end edge is, and then you can bend this over. I did that on all directions. So we're going to overlap this top, which you can see I did the same thing. We'll overlap it and we'll put screws on the other side, possibly with a little bead of silicone. We'll see how it looks when I get it on there, but more than likely, because this is sealed with sealer tape all the way down. And then you're going to have the piece go here. Now, one other thing that we do is we have a different closure. If you remember, we used a foam closure like this one, which has just one high-rise part, really small, and it goes to close up the top of, close up all of these ribs on the, where it actually flows over the side, so bugs and all can't get inside of this rib. But on the top, we are going to use these closures, which have a great big edge on them. You'll see big foam, and we're going to take and place these on this direction. So you will take one of these, let me get it broke loose here with one hand, and these are going to go like so. That'll keep things from going this direction in, or having water, if you get a downpour going from the other direction, pouring and working its way under, so it seals everything off. So we're going to do that and start putting on this top piece. There's 2 pieces here. Each one of these are 12 feet long. They'll overlap a little bit, and we will put it on time lapse and let you see how that's done. Okay, so there you go. We're 3 days and we've got the roof done. All the screws are in. If you look, they're in nice straight lines, the way they should be. None of the screws are over driven. You don't want that washer sticking out. All the trim is on, all the way around. Those closures are underneath to keep driving rain from going this way, and you have closures at the opened end on the opposite side. And we ran our tape all along each edge to make sure nothing could get in. Long pieces and tape in between each overlap. So that's really all there is to it. I hope you got something out of this. It's hot, hot, hot here in Texas. As you can see, we've already changed a couple times today. But if you got anything out of this, be sure you subscribe. If you haven't already, hit that bell notification so you know about all the upcoming videos as I release them. And if you want to, leave some comments. If you have different ways of doing the roof, I'd love to hear it, love to see it. Comments help the channel grow. We do appreciate it, and hope to see you next time.